The ayes have it. Call on Government Orders of the Day numbers 2 and 3.
Customs and Excise Border Processing Trade Single Window and Duties Amendment Bill interrupted debate on third reading. Biosecurity Border Processing Trade Single Window Amendment Bill, third reading.
Members, when we were last debating these bills, John Hayes had the call and has 9 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last evening, there was a lot of hot air coming from that side of the House trying to make trouble out of nothing. It came from one Phil Goff. The sort of things he was saying were, the Minister has yet to explain to the House why his budget has blown out, what required a blowout of $13 million extra. Is that the last of the blowout? This is only the first tranche. Are we going to have the same problems with the second tranche? He said there have been variations that had caused extra costs, etc., etc., etc. And he asked that I come back and explain today to the House exactly what has been going on, and I have done that work. Mr. Speaker, the Joint Border Management System provides a single channel, a single trade window for importers and exporters to comply with New Zealand's border requirements. We're doing it to make a more efficient system. It is going to save $450 million of exporter and importer funds over the next 10 years. Mr. Speaker, the JBMS, the Joint Border Management System, has the full support of industry who are partly paying for it through cost recovery. Two major change requests for Tranche 1 were approved by the Joint Border Management System Joint Executive Board back in 2012. Those change requests, which had an impact on timing and budget, were supported by industry. They were to, first of all, switch from a single delivery date to a longer-term phased delivery, more in keeping with modern IT practice, and secondly, to incorporate changes in the World Customs Organisation message format, WCO3, to ensure that the JBMS is equipped with world standard and workflow into the trade single window. So the Joint Border Management System is now a multi-year phased program of work, so there is no single finish date. It's like building a travel website. The first stage might tell you the flights that you've got to book, then later modules would provide access to hotels, rental cars, insurance, entertainment and the like. So does Shane Jones. Mr. Speaker, the trade single window has been up and running since the 1st of August 2013 and is working well. There have been 265,000 transactions which have been successfully made to date. The feedback from industry about the trade single window has been superb. Last night, Mr. Goff was trying to compare it with INSYS. I would point out that INSYS was a computer program that was never, ever put to work. It was never actually implemented. We're not in this situation because, as I've said, this system is already working and we have had 265,000 transactions so far. In a typical year, you can expect about 600,000 transactions. The program is, contrary to Mr. Goff's assertions, within budget. $77.2 million was spent out of $89.7 to date. Labor members have repeatedly been informed of this progress through my committee, the Foreign Affairs, Trade and Defence Select Committee, and through written questions. Mr. Speaker, indeed there has been a number of articles in the media back to June last year documenting the increased budget and the changes of timing for implementation. Mr. Speaker, the choice of IBM as a provider was up to Customs and MPI, and they went through standard government procedure processes, which does not involve ministers. Mr. Speaker, the trade service window has handled, as I said, the single trade window has handled 265,000 transactions to date. All outward messages from customs to traders are going through this process, and 24% of inward trade lodgements are going through the trade service, the single window. Industry pilot partners are satisfied with the performance. It processes transactions in an average of 28 seconds. Each transaction processed in 28 seconds, saving them time and money. Traders will progressively move onto the single window through 2014 and 15, and ultimately it'll deal with approximately 500,000 export transactions annually and 1.4 million import transactions and 124,000 cargo reports. Pilot partners, who represent 63% of total transactions, worked with Customs and MPI to develop test and launch arrangements for the window. One is CargoWise. It handles, I think, something like 50% of industry transactions. They are very pleased with it and have said so both to the Minister and public in forums like the CBAFF conference, that's the customs brokers and freight forwarders. CargoWise marketing is said to its clients, quote, "We urge you to work with us to move you to the new EDI Enterprise web service as quickly as possible and enjoy a considerable cost saving as well as a much more predictable and reliable service." Fonterra's Direct Connect development provider, SAP in Europe, said that Customs is the best customs administrators they have ever dealt with, and I would just add that's been my experience over the last 9 years in this House. I've always thought that the Customs Department is one of our best government agencies, and they go on to say it's the best administration they've ever dealt with in terms of support and responsiveness, and they deal with many. Let me just go through the budget information that was sought last night, which of course Mr Goff has had for some time, had he ever bothered to read through parliamentary questions and his written questions. The approved capital budget in 2010 was $75.9 million. Cabinet approved an additional expenditure of $8.9 million from within the existing Custom and Empire CapEx baselines and $4.9 million fiscally neutral transfer from operating funding to capital funding. That then gives you a total budget of $88.7 million, of which $77.2 million was spent to the end of February this year. Mr Speaker, I hope that answers the questions that were raised last night. I'm in absolute support of this piece of legislation, which is outstanding and very well brought to this House and managed by a very competent minister. Thank you.
I call David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And I think what we have heard there is one